Morning all, let's have a look at another very interesting Immortal game. This game was played in Buenos Aires 1978. Playing white was a Chinese player called Liu Wenzhe, and playing black the Grandmaster Hein. So, okay, it kicked off with e4, and Donner played d6, indicating he might be interested in a Pirc defense or a modern setup. After d4, knight f6, knight c3, we see a fianchetto. After bishop e2, bishop g7, white plays a surprisingly aggressive move now in this position. Instead of routinely, say, playing knight f3, a non-classical approach is adopted here with g4. This move g4 is usually found in lines against the Sicilian quite early. For example, the Kara's attack has a major use of g4. Here though, you might think, well, black can stop the major bad effects of this by playing h6, which he does. And now we see a seemingly timid follow-up, a surprising follow-up of g4, just h3. But clearly with the pawn now supported, this knight is now free to come to f3 if needed. Donner now plays c5 and white plays d5. And now it doesn't seem as though there's any big problem here for black to castle, so black indeed just castles. However, the point is revealed. It was like a pretense perhaps of defending this pawn that the knight might go here. In fact, now another aggressive pawn move is played. Just h4, not bothering about the knight on g1. Okay, and now there's a potential threat of g5 dislodging the knight from f6, and the bishop covers h5 as well. Is this a problem? Can black not play this like a Buenos and kind of rip open the centre, use this e-file? He plays e6, and white continues caveman style with g5. hg opens up the h-file. It looks rather dangerous to have this rook down the h-file, but what else could black do here? If he moves the knight, then g takes h6 is very unpleasant, one would think. Knight h7, say g takes. Let's move the bishop. We'll have a look at this in the second pass. It doesn't look particularly healthy to sack a pawn like this, with h5 still happening as well. Okay, so in this position, black did take on g5 after hg played the move knight e8. And now we get an elegant little attacking maneuver with queen d3. While the bishop's not eyeing h3, there's an immediate threat of queen h3, and not so subtle threat of queen h7 mate. This doesn't remind me of the most advanced Anatoly Karpov positional plans. It looks more like a hack attack plan if you want to win against someone quite quickly. So against this threat of queen h3, black plays e takes d5. Okay, and now we'll look in the second pass, but white maybe could have ignored this and played a maneuver with his queen to try and get on the h-file. But actually, white responds with knight takes d5 here. May have been possible to do something else even in that position. Now we see knight c6, which might be a blunder actually. It allows this very aggressive and simple maneuver. Maybe this wasn't Hein Donner's day. I don't know if some tiredness or underestimating his opponent. So queen g3 looks as though it does carry a menacingly crude and effective idea of just to mate the black king on h7. With the knight dislodged, this really does represent a serious problem. It's not just a funny joke. Black tries to challenge the knight on d5 because that also could be a problem in some variations. Now we get the threat of mate, and there's not too many defences here because the knight is blocking in the rook, so the king can't move away. So that looks actually fairly unfortunate why the knight did end up on e8 and not try and go somewhere else. For the very curious among you, we'll check that out in the second pass. Anyway, for here, in this position, black tries f5, giving the king an escape square. And fine, if white played e takes, there might also be, you know, f file for black to use. But white plays check, and after king f7, there might actually be two very good moves in this position. I wonder if you can spot what was actually played, which is the absolute best move in the position. And this will really test your forcing move analysis. It's a good mating puzzle, basically, in effect. Can you spot what white plays in this position if I give you 10 seconds, or you might want to pause the video? And remember, the key thing is to get the right follow-up as well. Okay, so starting from now. Okay, now give yourself 50 points if you played rook h6. This looks dangerous as well, just using the bishop pin. It does look dangerous, and it's difficult to defend that. We'll check that out later. But in the game, the beautiful move, queen takes g6 check, the outrageous forcing move, giving up the queen. Okay, the king cannot go onto the dark square, the knight's covering e7, so it comes out to play with king takes g6. And now another forcing move, just making use of that bishop on e2, bishop h5 check. King's forced onto that h file. And now, can you spot the move here, which restricts black's defensive options? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, I hope you found this next move, bishop f7 check, just to make sure the king cannot go to g8, running the king out of there on that h file. So not too many moves. Bishop h6 is the only move. Now, okay, and here's the real punchline of this combination. What does white play here if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, the amusing punchline is g6 check. So the pawn is now going to be protecting the bishop. The knight's keeping the king out of f6. Okay, if the king does go to g7, which it does sort of have to go to, well, we'll look at king h8. I don't think that makes much difference at all. But in the game, king g7 was played. And now after bishop takes h6, check. Well, the king can't go to f6. It has to go back again. Actually, Hein resigned here. And I think he quipped something like, how could a grandmaster lose to a Chinese player at the time? It was before the rise of China. I think he was just shocked that he didn't think you know, China had a great chess culture. But in fact, you know, this player Liu Wenzhe was actually he was an international master. He was the first Chinese player to actually defeat a grandmaster, and that was Krogius in 1965. Some of you may know the name Krogius. He wrote this book on the psychology of chess, actually, which is a fascinating read. So he made records for Chinese chess. He also became the second Chinese chess player to defeat a Western GM. Western GM. And this was Donna. So this is the Chinese Immortal. This is the game. So he's also beaten basically Krogius in 65. Now the game against Donna was in round 7. This game was in round 7 of the 1978 Olympiad. Okay, and there's some information on Wiki or ChessGames.com. So for those interested, Liu was born in Harbin on the 7th of October 1940 and founder of the modern Chinese School of Chess. His family were originally in Dalian City, Liaoning Province, At the Beijing Chess Research Center, he became a chess coach in 1961. He won the national championship in 1980 and 1982, and was appointed to the position of chief national coach in 1986. Under his tutelage, the Chinese women's team won gold at the Chess Olympics of 1998 and repeated the performance in 2000 and 2002. He was also well known as an expert on the games of Go, Bridge, and Xiongqi, which is Chinese chess. It's a sparkling game, it really is, and it reminds me of stuff you'd really want to use in a Chess Cube Warzone tournament, where the idea is to win as quickly as possible. Very sweet win, 20 moves. So if you're in a Chess Cube Warzone, you can get onto your next game. Let's have a look at it again. Why was it so easy? So let's go under the engine microscope. What on earth happened to black? So basically, black, maybe, you know, he underestimated his opponent, and he shouldn't have done. Liu had already beaten Krogis in 65. You know, a strong Russian grandmaster. So h4, yes, it's really aggressive chess, basically. And the engine doesn't mind h4. In fact, it's actually prompting h4 here after black's committed to castling. The address of the king is now known, so why not go for it? So h4, e6, okay, and then going for it again. And there's no real rule violation about piece development here. It's the position gives white the license to do this. The rook is being activated. The pieces are being activated. The bishop's justified on e2, eyeing h5 in this particular position. There's a question about knight d7. You know, if rook e8, this bishop could have handled things perhaps. Let's have a look at that. If hg, well, knight h7 is also mentioned, knight e8, but knight d7, do we lose d6? Is that the problem? Just white changes plan with d takes e6. Then d6 is vulnerable. So this is nasty. Okay, unless black wants to play a pawn sack, but that would be better than the game for sure. Just sacking a pawn here or trying to. At least, you know, the black king is surviving for a bit longer. The knight's even stopping bishop c4 here. Better than the game continuation. With the knight on e8, basically there's congestion here. The black's king. The black king, the escape route is just totally ruined if the rook's meant to move and the king's supposed to help itself for defense. So now queen d3, absolutely engine approved move. It really is justified in this position. There's two routes to the king here, queen g3 to h4 or queen h3 straight away, and that's stopped with e takes d. Apparently it might be better to play knight c7 here. That gets rid of the congestion around the black king. So queen h3, rook e8. White wouldn't have an immediate mate here. If we go check, there's no big deal. There's king f8. That's the point, to get out of the way. Get the pieces out of the way. Why would white still be better here? d6 again. Bishop f4, just target d6. With the king still in the centre, you might think that's a bit risky. ed, ed. Queen e7. Castle queenside. It's not the most pleasant position, but the black king is not getting mated again, so it's an improvement on the game for sure. d6 looks terrible, absolutely terrible. If black is forced for some reason to play rook d8, this just looks absolutely horrible. Okay, so he didn't fancy knight c7, so he's leaving all the congestion there of the pieces now. And white could have even considered queen g3 here, apparently, even more accurate than recapturing. If f5 here takes, bishop d2. Apparently this is okay for white, but it looks as though black's in much better shape than the game again. Much better than the game. And he's got the escape square on f7 here, ready made. So maybe, okay, maybe that's a wise thing actually. Knight takes d5. on a practical level. Although it does mean knight c7, I think that would have been a key move just to get rid of the congestion again. Another opportunity here. So it'll be too slow again to do anything like queen g3. Apparently knight f6 might be of some value, sacrificing a pawn here. But okay, it's again much better than the game continuation. So knight c7 again, a missed opportunity maybe, and things start to get very dangerous after this move knight c6. So what really is happening here? Why is the evaluation going hugely up after knight c6? Because you might think, well, couldn't a transposition have occurred there? Queen g3 is not on d6, but it does threaten queen h4. If we look at this position, wasn't there just a transposition, you might ask? Well, queen g3, we can take on d5 here, challenging that knight, and it's free now for rook e8, just to optimize against queen g3. So here we're a move behind for black to arrange a defense in this position. After knight c6, why are things actually critical here after queen g3? The thing is, it's really quick. Queen g3 to h4 is really quick. If knight c7, let's have a quick look at this, trying to arrange rook e8. Okay, here there's a massive subtlety, it seems. It's not just the idea of queen h4 now. Pardon me. If we go queen h4, I expect black can get out with rook e8. Or can he? There's knight f6 check here, supported by the queen on h4. King f8. Okay, is the black king necessarily getting quickly mated? That's the question. Forget about winning the exchange. It's not nice for black, but it's not end of game in this position, actually. So the other thing, though, is instead of queen h4, apparently knight f6 check immediately in this position is a lot more crunching than queen h4. So let's have a look at knight f6. Why was that so strong? Why is the queen sack being given as the best move? Bishop takes f6. Aha! Behold. What is going on here? Forget the recapture. Queen h4, threatening mate on h7. And this is making a huge difference now to the position. Rook e8. And now g takes f6 is mating. This pawn is part of the attack, stopping the king's escape. Black will get mated. So that's pretty interesting how this move here, knight f6, is so crunching compared to queen h4. So queen h4 is a lot different here. After knight f6, we're given another option. Instead of just bishop f6, we also have the option as black of king f8. That's the major difference. By playing knight f6 immediately, the clinical move for the attack, there's no option given of escaping, really. So queen h8 is unstoppable there, and after queen h4, rook e8, check, there's king f8. Don't need to take on f6, can give up the exchange. So very accurate behind the scenes. There might be some accurate stuff seen behind the scenes by the Grandmaster, which maybe explains certain decisions. So bishop e6, I mean, it is, we have witnessed a defensive disaster, really. This is a total defensive disaster, the way it was actually played. With this position, I mean, after f5, you know, check here, even rook h6 seems quite crushing, but queen takes g6 as a mate in 7. Rook h6, I mean, how does black defend that? Knight e7, you know, okay, the black king would live a little bit longer, and okay, it's not so clear as the game, but it's still, you know, quite significant advantage. In the game, it's totally and utterly clear cut. Queen takes g6 is actually fantastic precision chess. Brilliant combination here. Dragging the king on the h file, making sure the king's got no escape route on g8, and then this pawn is doing a fantastic job with g6 now, supporting the bishop on f7 and helping for the final mating net. A great game, a cracker of the game. I think you'll agree. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.